What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 8 of the Patel and Kumar Show. I am Shivam Patel, coming to you from San Antonio, Texas. And I got my co-host, Mr. Kumar, coming to you live from Mumbai, India. Mr. Kumar, what a game that we had yesterday between the Raptors and the Celtics, going into double overtime. Man, what a game.
Yes, absolutely. It was nail-biting. And I was rooting for both the teams there because I just wanted that game to never end. And of course, both were playing excellent basketball, and it was just a seesaw battle. But folks, once again, welcome to the Patel and Kumar NBA Talk Show. And we are so excited because we have done with 6 episodes. This is our 7th episode, and we have a very, very exciting lineup for you tonight. And of course, we're going to start out with the recap of the playoff round 2. And then, of course, we're going to be discussing about Giannis, if he's going to stay back in Milwaukee. And we're also going to be checking out on Steve Nash, who just got hired as a coach of the Brooklyn Nets. And then moving on to the Indian TADKA section, the spiciest section on YouTube. And we're going to continue our discussion about the Basketball Pro League. So Mr. Patel, I think let's get on with the show.
All right, I'm ready, Mr. Kumar. Another great episode. So now starting off, we wanted to start off with the playoff bracket. And starting off in the Eastern Conference, the Heat have surprisingly, they've already defeated the Milwaukee Bucks. And Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to be sent packing early. And the Milwaukee Bucks have been defeated for the second straight year early in the playoffs. And then on the other side, it is the Celtics and the Raptors, which we had a crazy game last night. It's like a heavyweight fight, both teams exchanging blows, but the Raptors ended up coming up on top and tying the series at 3 apiece. And we got a Game 7 Friday, and I can't wait, Mr. Kumar.
Now it's anybody's game. It's the last and final game. After that 2-0, for the Boston, I really thought it was game over for Toronto, but they have really made a comeback. And, day after tomorrow is when we're going to see if, how it's going to be in that 7th game. But moving on to the West, no surprises there after the loss in the first game. The Lakers coming back to win back-to-back, and they lead the series 2-1. And the Clippers playing a fantastic game. Of course, they came all lights blazing in that first game against Denver, but Denver catching up to them in that second one. But the last 2 games, there was no match for Leonard. Leonard has been absolutely wonderful. He's definitely in the discussion for the MVP of the bubble. He has been playing consistently well for the Clippers.
Hey, Mr. Kumar, what I was telling you, this man is coming. He's ready. He's going to take the throne as the new king of LA. Just wait, Mr. Kumar. And he's going to get himself another championship. That's coming for you.
Well, he's got a long way to go. The throne is still with my LeBron James, and he's got to steal that throne from James if he needs. Of course, that'll decide in the Western Conference Finals as expected if we see the Lakers and the Clippers. But let's move on with the show. I think the main question here in the second round of playoffs is whether the Bucks really played bad or did the Heat the Heat were excellent. So what led to their early exit from this second round of the playoffs?
For me, Mr. Kumar, I think it was bad Bucks because Coach Budenholzer did not have very many adjustments, and he kind of put Giannis in situations that he had last year where he really struggled. Giannis, they played him a lot at the top of the key, but that's not the best place for him because all 5 defenders are able to focus on him, and the Heat did the same thing as the Raptors last year. They built the wall, and they limited his paint scoring. But Budenholzer should have made a couple adjustments, such as maybe doing the pick and roll on the wings so that Giannis can see less defenders and he can have more easy lanes to the basket. Or maybe some post-ups, where he can use his size, length, and athleticism against smaller defenders. Or maybe even, hook shots, in the paint or fadeaway jump shots in the paint also that we've seen in the regular season, we didn't see in this playoffs. And I think Giannis, was kind of put in a bad situation where he could be stopped, of course, before his injury. And I think the Bucks, needed to kind of adjust their game plan a little bit and make a little tweaks, because Giannis's main shots in this series were either going to the paint, getting to the free throw line, or threes. There was no in between, mid range or any shots really in the paint that can get him really comfortable, that can open up the rest of the game for the Bucks. So I think this was more bad Bucks, but the Heat, you have to give them credit. They really came out ready to play. They had a game plan ready, and Erik Spoelstra outcoached Mike Budenholzer, and the Heat definitely deserved to win this series.
Okay, I think it's my time now, Mr. Patel. Well, I think the Heat played excellent basketball. They had more arsenal with them, especially with Jimmy Butler, Goran Dragic, Bam Adebayo, and of course, they also had Tyler Hero coming off the bench. And of course, some games it was Duncan Robinson, in some games it was Kelly Olynyk, even Andre Iguodala and Jay Crowder. Nobody mentions him, but he did a great job defending Giannis, especially in those first three games. And of course, in that third game, Giannis injured his ankle, and then of course he came back, but he wasn't himself. In game 4, of course, he injured early, and he played only 11 minutes. And of course, game 5, without him, it was going to be difficult for the Bucks to win against the Heat. But I thought.
So we are having a little bit of technical difficulties with Mr. Kumar on the side. But talking about the Heat and the Bucks, I was very impressed with the Heat's motion offense, because they had a lot of great ball movement and body movement. And they were really doing a great job of, cutting, finding the open man, and they ended up getting a lot of open threes as a result. And I think that really confused the Bucks, defensively. And the Heat, like Mr. Kumar said, had a lot of, options to go to. Goran Dragic played well, Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson had his moments. So the Heat were just a more balanced team and had more bench production, while the Bucks were just limited to Giannis. Before Giannis got hurt, Chris Middleton really struggled. Eric Bledsoe had a very subpar series. Brook Lopez didn't, step up to the plate. So the Heat, it was more of a collective effort versus the Bucks. It was just really Giannis or bust. So, Mr. Kumar, I'll let you get back to your point on this Heat and Bucks discussion.
No, as I said, the Heat had more people in terms of scoring. They could that could take up the load from Jimmy Butler and Dragic. But what happened with the Bucks was it was two-dimensional. It is just Giannis and Chris Middleton, and there was just too much pressure on a person like Chris Middleton. I think it was a great mistake for them to leave a person like Malcolm Brogdon, who was like a 50, 40, 90 guy, and he could consistently give you a minimum of 18 to 20 points every single game. And I think that was a big loss for a team like Bucks, and gain for Indiana Pacers, of course. But I think if he was there, I think it would have been a different ball game, because it would have been Giannis, Middleton, Brogdon, and of course Eric Bledsoe and Lopez. And Lopez also did whatever he could do with his limitations. But at the end of the day, it was just a great team effort. And as you mentioned, I think it was the coach made the difference. Erik Spoelstra is a championship pedigree coach. It's not. Budenholzer has been the coach of the year as well. But I think Erik Spoelstra just had an ace up his sleeve compared to the Bucks.
And he did. And just one quick point before we get to the poll, that I loved how the Heat really opened up the floor. They had Bam Adebayo at the top of the key, and he was kind of their point forward. So either take his man off the dribble, or he can find different guys to pass it to. So the Heat did a very good job of opening up the floor on the offense, with their motion offense. So now we ran a poll about who will win the series between the Heat and the Bucks. And not surprisingly, most of the audience said the Bucks at 63%, including myself. I said the Bucks were going to win in 7 because I had faith in Giannis Antetokounmpo, but he ended up going out, with injury in Game 4, and as a result, the Bucks just didn't have enough firepower to keep up with the Miami Heat.
Yeah, I did pick the Heat to win this series, but I did give a little bit of consideration to the reigning MVP that probably he will help his team win at least 2 games. But at the end of the day, it was that 4th game was, I think the Heat just let the accelerator off the pedal and let the Bucks win. So they win easy 4-1, and a lot of questions in the minds of the Milwaukee Bucks fans whether Giannis is going to stay back, and we're going to discuss that in our section later. But let's move on to our the most exciting series of the second round. After the first 2 games, everybody had written off the Toronto Raptors, including you, my man. You had written off the Toronto Raptors, but what a comeback it is. The series is split, and yes, yesterday's game was just amazing. I think Kyle Lowry just took it upon himself to make sure that the Toronto Raptors give a challenge to the Boston Celtics.
And Mr. Kumar, never underestimate the heart of the champion. And I got off the, Raptors bandwagon. And now, looks like the Raptors are in good position, to steal this Game 7. But also Nick Nurse is another example of making adjustments. The Raptors played a box and one and zone defense, in the first half to really take away the Celtics pick and roll action. And they forced the Celtics to shoot a lot of threes in the first half. And even though the Celtics were making those threes, that's not really the Celtics' MO. They want to use their advantage and their size advantage to get in the paint and draw a lot of fouls, on the Raptors. So kudos for Nick Nurse for making that, adjustment. And also in the second half, Mr. Kumar, the Raptors also went small, and to be able to switch on those pick and rolls, they went with Kyle Lowry, Norman Powell, Van Fleet, OG Anunoby, and Pascal Siakam. So they were much more versatile, and they could really be able to spread the floor, on the Celtics and have a lot of shooting around them. And Van Fleet, had a big game, 21 points. Kyle Lowry had 33 points, making 6 3-pointers. Norman Powell had 23 points. OG Anunoby had 13 points and 13 rebounds, a double-double, and had a huge, bucket late in defensive plays. So I think it was just a very collective team effort for the Raptors, and they have that championship pedigree. They made a lot of key defensive stops, especially in overtime, and a lot of clutch buckets down the stretch. And the Raptors had a good, supporting cast and a good collective team effort to allow them to get this victory.
I think the Toronto Raptors are the least discussed defending champions in the history of the NBA. I don't think any analyst gave them any chance, during the, before the season, in terms of the Raptors probably going on to win the championship. And that's for a reason. Of course, they had Leonard last year, who could really help them and win that championship against, of course, a beat-up Golden State Warriors. That's a different story altogether, but they're still the defending champions. But I think the Raptors have been totally inconsistent in this series. Of course, Lowry, Van Vliet, even Anunoby and Powell, everybody has had good games on and off, but they have not had good games consistently. And especially Pascal Siakam has not been showing up in this series at all. He's averaging only like 15 points a game, and you don't expect that from, the most improved player award, the reigning most improved player. And I think I would say the same thing with the Boston Celtics as well. The first 2 games, they were phenomenal, but then again, I think that third game, Anunoby's 3 with that 0.5 seconds totally changed the complexion of the series. I think that's the catalyst that the Toronto Raptors needed in order to make a comeback. Because otherwise, this series was over. This was pretty much done. I mean, you don't expect somebody to score on 0.5 seconds, right? I mean, those chances are like pretty much zero, you know.
Yeah.
But Anunoby did it, and then it just allowed the Raptors to come back into the series. Otherwise, it would have been a big hole, 3-0. Nobody has ever come back from a 3-0 deficit. So kudos to Nick Nurse in terms of drawing up that play, and I thought Brad Stevens had a brain freeze and went to that zone, defense during that last moment. And I don't know whether it was a calculated risk, but at the end of the day, he has given the chance for the Raptors to tie the series, and we'll have to see what happens in that 7th game. I still think the Boston Celtics has a better chance of winning because defensively, Fred VanVleet, Kyle Lowry, it's a difficult matchup for them in terms of defending, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and of course Marcus Smart has just been super smart in this series. So yeah, again, it's going to be which team plays better. So it's been a team effort for both teams. I think everybody has been contributing. So is it going to be Nick Nurse or is it going to be Brad Stevens?
And Mr. Kumar, everybody, on the Celtics, played well. Jaylen Brown had a big game. Jason Tatum also played well. And, Marcus Smart has been going berserk from 3, hitting like 6 threes, last night. But if Kemba Walker, he really struggled down the stretch. If he made one of those 2 layups and a couple more jump shots, the Celtics would have won the game last night. But credit the Raptors defense. They're really doing a great job of ratcheting up the defense and causing the Celtics to turn the ball over. And the Raptors are also trying to push the pace a lot more, on makes and misses to try to get ahead of that Celtics defense, to get easy transition points because they've really been struggling in the half court. So like you said, Mr. Kumar, which coach is going to make the necessary adjustments, to win Game 7. And it's going to be all about which players step up and which team plays more collectively and together because both teams looked like they were exhausted and spent last night, in overtime. So do the Raptors have enough energy, to come back on Friday night and be able to put forth that same energy that they need to win? But I have to give, an edge to the Raptors right now because the Raptors, went through the struggle of winning a championship last year, winning a huge Game 7 against the Sixers. And Celtics are a little bit young and inexperienced, and you can see that a little bit down the stretch. They're a little bit unsure, of themselves. Jason Tatum, instead of attacking the basket and shooting, I think he was a little bit too passive in overtime, and that caused some turnover. So which team and which players are going to step up? But I can't wait. It's going to be must-watch TV, 2 Eastern Conference heavyweights going at it. And get your popcorn ready because we're in for a treat, Mr. Kumar, in Game 7. And Bhushan is commenting on one of the best Game 6s in NBA history, 2 overtimes.
Absolutely, but I would vote LeBron James Game 6 against Boston Celtics.
I knew that was coming.
Probably the best Game 6 ever, but I can't help it that I'm a LeBron James fan. But yeah, it was absolutely entertaining, and for any basketball fan, it was a seesaw battle. And but Marcus Smart had a great chance to win that game right at the end. It was a great pass by Jason Tatum, so they did have that opportunity, but it wasn't the same like what Anunoby did in that Game 3. So of course we also ran an audience poll, and it's in favor of the Celtics, Mr. Patel. So looks like we may have to say goodbye to the Raptors in a couple of days.
Oh man, I picked the Celtics to win in 6 games in this series, but the Raptors win, I'll be pretty stoked because the Raptors were my preseason prediction to come out of the Eastern Conference. So it'll be nice to see the Raptors make a little run at it, without Kawhi Leonard. And Soham Gupta is saying the Raptors versus Celtics is probably the most even matchup in the NBA. And you're exactly right, Soham, because the Raptors and the Celtics do have similar personnel. They're both guard-heavy offenses that they rely on their guards to make shots and play well for them to win. And it's kind of like 2 two teams kind of going at it because the Raptors are kind of the experienced veteran team, and then the Celtics are kind of like the up-and-coming young team, with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. So it's going to see which is going to prevail in the series, Mr. Kumar. Is it going to be the experienced team, the Toronto Raptors, or is it going to be the youth movement in the Boston Celtics taking that mantle and hopefully and making it to the Eastern Conference Finals?
Well, I mean, Jackson asking us to take a wild guess right now on who wins the championship and in how many games. For me, it has been clear right from the start that it's going to be the Lakers. So I guess I think Lakers in 7 against Miami Heat.
All right.
How does that sound?
No, that's wild, Mr. Kumar. The Miami Heat. I said whoever wins this Raptors-Celtics series, Mr. Kumar, is going to the NBA Finals, and I think it's going to be the Clippers and the Raptors. Kawhi go at it against his former team, and I think the Clippers are going to win the finals in 6 games against the Toronto Raptors. My preseason prediction, by the way, just throwing that out there, Mr. Kumar.
Oh, well, I mean, anyway, this is being recorded, so we can always go back to it after the results are done. But let's move on to the West. I think the question is, are Lakers back to their best? And I picked the Lakers to win in 6 games. It's 2-1, and you picked the Lakers to win in 6 games. What do you think of the series after the 3 games are done? Do you think the Lakers are back to their best?
I think they are, and Anthony Davis and LeBron James are just playing at an incredible level. LeBron James with a 36-point triple-double in Game 3. Anthony Davis pitching in 26 points. They're doing a really good job of not feeding into the Rockets' system of making them, wanting them to shoot a lot of threes. The Lakers are doing a great job of getting into the paint, dominating the rebounds. And Mr. Kumar, the Lakers' defense, man, in Game 2, they did a great job of throwing in that 1-2-2 zone that really confused the Rockets and threw their offense out of rhythm. And then in Game 3, it was traps on Harden. They knew that Harden likes to dribble, at the top of the key. So at the end of the shot clock, with like under 10 seconds to go, they would spring a trap with the defender that's closest to Harden would come and trap Harden and really throw off the passing lanes and make him give it up, to like an Eric Gordon or maybe a PJ Tucker when Harden would rather take the shot. So it's really done a great job of taking the Rockets, out of their offense, and also on the pick and roll. They're doing a great job of showing multiple bodies at Harden and making it tough for him, and he's getting a lot of turnovers, as a result. So the Lakers' defensive plan against Harden has been masterful, and if they could, and unless the Rockets, can make a couple of adjustments, I think it's going to be hard for them to score without Harden, being aggressive, and taking over the game. And Soham Gupta definitely agrees that the Lakers' defense is what winning them these games, Game 2 and Game 3.
So I absolutely agree with Soham Gupta that the Lakers defense is getting the job done. Their defense was rated number 3 in the regular season. And, of course, when they came into the bubble, when they played those 8 games, they were pretty much, I think, 21st out of the 22 teams which were in the bubble in terms of defensive rating. And the Houston Rockets defense actually was number 1. In the bubble before coming into this series. So I think the tides have totally turned and the Lakers have gone back to what they do best. And that is stifle the teams. I know it has always been said that the best perimeter defensive team is the Clippers, especially with Patrick Beverley, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. But I think, nobody can underestimate the perimeter defense of the Lakers, and they've been anyway. They have Anthony Davis, they have Dwight Howard, they have JaVale McGee, and I think LeBron James just showed everybody by having his own block party in terms of why he was overlooked from that defensive team list. The defensive team list that came out. He was not even in the first one or not even in the second one. And I don't know why, because I think he has played great defense this season. And, I think he should have been included in the all-defensive team. But The other thing is, I think, LeBron and AD have been phenomenal in the last two games against the Houston Rockets. They did pretty much the same thing with the Portland Trailblazers in the first round. And defense, and they've had some supporting cast coming in and helping. So it's been Rajon Rondo. I mean, they don't name him playoff Rondo for nothing, right? But it's been, we've not seen playoff Rondo for like ages now, of course. But as Bhushan says, yeah, I mean, playoff Rondo was on fire. But there's always been supporting from like Marcus Morris in that, second game. Then it has been, even Kyle Kuzma has been doing a pretty good job. So I've always said that it's going to boil down to who's going to be the third or the fourth star for the Lakers. I mean, you need at least two more people averaging about 15 points in order to overcome any of the teams, in the playoffs. So it's been, Rondo was exceptional. He has a rating of plus 35 in the last two games, and it just feels like it is vintage Rondo. So, I don't feel the Lakers are really at the best right now, but they're getting there. They're getting there, and LeBron has always let that first game be kind of a feeler in terms of what the what kind of strategies the opposite team uses, and he learns. And he just showed. I mean, we just had the best first half performance by LeBron James. He scored 29 points. Of course, he didn't have much in the second half, but he did a great job in defense by having those 4 blocks.
And speaking of defense, I've been really impressed that the Lakers have been doing a good job of hugging up on the Rockets' three-point shooters and forcing them to take twos, which Mr. Kumar, the Rockets do not like to take twos. They like to jack up a lot of threes. They shoot over 50 a game. But for the Rockets side, they really need someone else to step up, besides James Harden, whether it's Eric Gordon, Jeff Green, Austin Rivers. And they need better play out of Russell Westbrook. The Lakers are basically daring Russell Westbrook to shoot, open three-pointers. But for him, he doesn't need to fall for that. He needs to take a step in, go to his game, and maybe take a couple of mid-range shots or just attack the basket and get to the foul line, because that will really get him going. So, and for the Rockets, in order to combat the Lakers' traps, I think they need to go a little bit earlier in the shot clock. James Harden needs to, start maybe attacking the basket at 15 seconds instead of maybe like 8 or 7, to beat the Lakers' defense and to really be able to draw more fouls on the Lakers. And he needs to do a better job of getting those switches, on Rondo or Caruso, those smaller guards, on him to be able to take advantage of those matchups. So the Rockets definitely need to play better on the offensive end of the floor, because they have been struggling, and they need to hit more three-point shots if they even want a chance, to even get another game on the Lakers.
Absolutely, and I think this is a no-brainer. I think 84% of the people pretty much voted for the Lakers to win this series, and the rest 16% I think are pretty much the fans of James Harden, because they just wanted to pick the Rockets to win. I didn't think the Rockets pretty much had a great chance of winning this series unless they're like red hot from the three. Because in that game 2 they shot 22 3-pointers and then still ended up losing the game. And then in the third game, they tried to go and penetrate inside, and that's what happened in the first half. Russell Westbrook did not shoot, I think, a 3 at all in that first half, and he was phenomenal from the paint. But I think he changed colors. I mean, he's like a spy in the Rockets team. Just that he does not wear a Lakers uniform.
And no, that's definitely true. And they need Westbrook to play better though in the second half, because he had a good first half of Game 3, but he was too turnover prone and not taking enough shots in the second half. And it looks like the audience believes that the Lakers are back to their best. 72% saying yes, And I definitely, second the audience on that because the Lakers are starting to get into that playoff form and getting into gear, for the heavyweight, huge matchup against the LA Clippers, coming up in the next round. And speaking of the LA Clippers, they ended up beating the Denver Nuggets last night to take a 3-1 series lead. And Mr. Kumar, is it just in this series a fact that the Clippers are just more talented and have better players than the Denver Nuggets, or do you see something else as a factor in why the Clippers are up 3-1 in the series?
I think the biggest factor has been Leonard, of course. The first game Denver played, they looked really tired after that 7-game series in the first round with the Jazz. And, that was a highly contested 7-game series. So, it's natural for that team to come out and, be a little bit lethargic. And the Clippers capitalize on that. But I still feel the Clippers are beating the Denver Nuggets even without the best performances from Paul George, from Lou Williams, from Montrezl Harrell. So it's pretty much been totally Leonard dependent. And, you saw that in that, second game, or I think the third game, the second game when the Nuggets won, it was a cold shooting night from Leonard. He was really awful in that particular game. He was like shooting breaks, and you don't expect that from somebody like Leonard. And he's been absolutely, except for that particular game, he has been extremely consistent, scoring more than 30 points on several occasions in these playoffs. And he was the difference again in that fourth game because, he went lights out. He had 30 points, he had 11 rebounds, and 9 assists. He was pretty much close to a triple-double, which he rarely does. And of course, nobody can forget about that, middle finger rejection or block, on Jamal Murray. It was like if it was Dikembe Mutombo, and he'd be like, with that middle finger. But, that's how it is. But, of course, you can't show that on the NBA floor. But, so he got it done defensively. He got it done offensively. But I still think there's a lot more for the Clippers to figure out in terms of their team chemistry. I don't know where Lou Williams is. I don't know where Montrezl Harrell is. And let me tell you, Paul George has been totally inconsistent in the bubble.
No, he has. Paul George is going back to his pandemic P, where even though I have to give him credit, he played well in game 2, to allow the Clippers to win that game. But it's been Kawhi Leonard that's been really carrying, the Clippers this series. Even though Montrezl Harrell had a good game, scoring 15 points, in game 4. But I think this series is about the Clippers defense. Because Mr. Kumar, last night, they held the Nuggets to 39% shooting. They did a great job of rotating, making it tough on the Denver Nuggets to, drive to the paint. They contested their jump shots, and Nikola Jokic had a good game, 30 points, but everybody else on the Nuggets struggled. So they're letting Nikola Jokic get his, but they're really doing a great job of stopping Jamal Murray, Gary Harris, among others. So, credit to the Clippers. I think really game 2 was a pivotal point for them because they were losing that game, and they looked like they were going to lose. Or excuse me, game 3. They looked like they were going to lose that game completely. They looked very disengaged. They were just going through the motions. But in the third quarter, they really turned up the defense. And when the Clippers turn up the defense, they're almost impossible to score against. So I would like to see more consistency from the Clippers from a 48-game in a 48-minute game, both on offensive end and the defensive end of the floor. But Mr. Kumar, I think they're just waiting for the Lakers and then the finals. And I think that's when you're going to see the Clippers, be playing at their best in the next round. And we asked, the audience, who will win the series? And 75% say the Clippers are no surprise. Mr. Kumar, I don't think the Nuggets are going to be able to come back from a 3-1 deficit like they did against the Utah Jazz. The Clippers are just a whole different animal, and they just have too much depth, too much talent, and they got the claw Kawhi Leonard.
Yes, I agree with you. I think this series is pretty much over. Maybe if the Clippers are complacent They let Denver win one more game. That is, day after tomorrow. But this series is pretty much done, and I think we both picked the LA Clippers to win this series in 5 games, and I think it's going to be true. So let's wait and watch. So it's. I think the Heat have come into the conference finals. They're just waiting on that result from Boston and Toronto, and LA Clippers is pretty much, I think, comfortable in terms of reaching the conference finals. I think if the Lakers come into the Western Conference Finals, I think that is going to be the highest rated series, probably in NBA history, because I think the whole, basketball community is pretty much waiting for that Western Conference Finals. I think most of them predicted that would be the best case scenario in terms of Lakers and the Clippers coming into the Western Conference Finals, but it's going to be a fantastic series.
It definitely is, and I can't wait to see the two teams of LA go at it and see who's gonna be the king and who is gonna be the team of LA. So I can't wait. But Mr. Kumar, we got to finish the second round first, and now moving on to the to top storylines in the NBA, and we got to start with since the Bucks lost the series against the Heat, the big question is, will Giannis Antetokounmpo stay with the Milwaukee Bucks? And Mr. Kumar, what are your thoughts about this?
Well, he's come out and said that he's not going to ask for a trade, and he's most likely to stay. Of course, he has one more year of his contract left, but he can sign an extension this summer, the Supermax extension, in terms of being a franchisee player. Of course, he can also reject that extension and sign that extension, next season, that is in the 21-22 season. It's a very difficult question. I think emotionally, I think Giannis really wants to stay with the Bucks. But honestly speaking, do the Bucks have enough in order to keep him there? That's the question. I think the Bucks organization has to probably support him with a third wheel there. As I pointed out in the first discussion, they let go of Brogdon to Indiana Pacers. They needed somebody like him. They needed that, another perimeter shooter, because whenever Giannis penetrates inside, he can, draw the defense onto him and probably kick it out to that perimeter shooter, and they score. And you need a consistent scorer. Now, he has a better chance of doing that because Miami Heat has cap space. The Toronto Raptors will have cap space. I think it would be a great opportunity for him to move out of the Bucks and probably go to a team like the Miami Heat or go to a team like the Toronto Raptors. Of course, both are former champions. Both have, championship pedigree coaches, right? So that's also important. So I think he may wait it out this year, but if the Milwaukee Bucks organization doesn't help him, then he's going to bolt from the Milwaukee Bucks.
I agree. And also the Golden State Warriors were also in the mix of, rumors that Giannis Antetokounmpo was going to also go, play for the Warriors and pull a Kevin Durant and, try to win a couple of championships. But I think a big factor of whether Giannis is going to stay is going to be this offseason, because they've been rumored that they're going to try to trade, for Chris Paul. And to get Chris Paul, they're probably going to have to part with either, Eric Bledsoe, Chris Middleton, or both. So let's see what changes the Bucks make this offseason to try to improve the team. Giannis is not a guy that points fingers. Even though, last year with Bledsoe and Lopez struggled, he pointed the finger saying, I need to be better. I think he realizes that he needed to be better, this offseason or this postseason, and he's going to really work to improve his game, on the offseason, try to get a more consistent jump shot. So I think it all starts with Giannis, but I think he trusts, the Bucks organization. He enjoys, being at a kind of a small market team in Milwaukee, kind of being the big dog. I think he's very comfortable in Milwaukee, but he has to make a business decision. What's best for his career, Mr. Kumar, and his legacy, and he definitely is going to have to win some championships because you can't win 2 MVPs, Mr. Kumar, and not have any championship to show for it. And it looks like the audience believes that will Giannis remain with the Bucks for the 2020 season, and 55% of them say yes. So I wouldn't be surprised. I think he's going to stay next season, and we'll see what happens. And that'll be determined whether he leaves the Bucks in 2021.
Well, as I said, it's going to be a 50-50 for me. But I mean, this just shows, whether that MVP award that he's going to get this year, was it really deserving? Of course, I'm going to root for my man, LeBron James, because I'm not arguing because I don't like Giannis and I like James more, but I think, you can see from the consistency of the performance, it's just a championship pedigree. The experience, what LeBron James has. He's been phenomenal in the playoffs. And, it's just the opposite for Giannis. So, So, anyway, that's a different discussion altogether for us. So, I think we'll move on to our next topic, which is, Steve Nash getting chosen as the coach of the Brooklyn Nets. But before that, let's also discuss a little bit about the musical chair in the coaching, position in a lot of the teams. Of course, you had Brett Brown, who was fired as soon as the Philadelphia 76ers, exited from the playoffs. Nate McMillan, that was surprising because he was just given a 1-year extension by the Indiana Pacers, and then he was fired after the Indiana Pacers lost. And you have the OKC, which parted ways with Billy Donovan. So there's been a lot of mix and match in the entire coaching position.
There definitely has been, and with Brett Brown, Nate McMillan, and even Billy Donovan, being let go as coaches, I think the main thing for these 3 guys is lack of success in the playoffs. Because starting with Nate McMillan, he's had 4 consecutive years where he lost in the first round of the playoffs. 3 of those years they've been getting swept. But this year, he gets the pass from me because Victor Oladipo was clearly not healthy, and Sabonis was completely out with injury. Brett Brown, he went through the whole process, losing on purpose with the Sixers. He was with them for 7 years. The last 3 years, they've had a high seed in the playoffs, and ended up falling short. With talent like Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, that was unacceptable. And then Billy Donovan also. Since they made the Western Conference Finals in 2015-2016, blowing a 3-1 lead to the Warriors, he's also had 4 consecutive losses in the first round. So I don't think these coaches are getting it done. I think the organizations want to move in a different direction and maybe bring some new blood. And I think for the Thunder, it makes sense because they're most likely going to get rid of Chris Paul, this year. And they have a lot of young players with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and a lot of young draft picks. So I think they want a young coach to be at the helm for the Thunder and really take the Thunder in a new direction and completely go for a rebuild.
Well, it's a difficult choice for any team. I would agree with Nate McMillan's exit, but I think even the front office of OKC and Philadelphia 76ers are to blame because nobody expected the OKC to anyway come into the playoffs. I think they were the least expected team, but they did a really good job. It also depends on the players, right? So we'll have to see how the coaching positions of these teams get filled. Of course, many candidates in line like Tyronn Lue and Sam Cassell and, many others. So, but let's move on and discuss about Steve Nash. What a surprising move there by Brooklyn Nets. Did you imagine ever that a person like, Steve Nash, I don't even think he envisaged that he himself would be a head coach someday. And he is going on to become the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets.
Oh, Mr. Kumar, this came completely out of left field. But Steve Nash, I think he wanted to get into coaching, but he had a quote that said he had to do it at the right time. He didn't want to, feel rushed. But I think this was a great move, for the Brooklyn Nets. Because first of all, Steve Nash already has a relationship with Kevin Durant, a strong one at that. Because he was a player's consultant for the Warriors for 2 years. And he really worked with Kevin Durant, after practice on drills. They had a lot of long conversations just about life and basketball and developed a trust and a great connection with Kevin Durant. And also the Nets GM, Sean Marks, played with the Phoenix Suns for a couple of years with Steve Nash. So Steve Nash kind of has connections with this Brooklyn Nets team. And I think he was a perfect coach, because I think they're hoping that he's going to be like a Steve Kerr kind of coach, bring an innovative offense. He's a great communicator. I think he connects well with people. He's a great mentor, as you see, with Kevin Durant. And his IQ, Mr. Kumar, is just off the charts. When he was a player, he could see the play before the play even happened. He had a great basketball IQ, and I think he'll be able to translate that into coaching. And I think he's just a great hire, for the Nets, and he'll bring a young, fresh perspective, and he'll be a great mentor and be able to inspire Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving to play at the level that they know they can play, reach their potential, and be able to lead the Nets to multiple championships.
Well, I agree with the qualities that Steve Nash has. Yes, he was a great player, MVP, Hall of Famer. But I think the point is whether he has the resume of being a head coach in the NBA. Yes, he was a player development consultant with the Golden State Warriors. He had a working relationship with Kevin Durant. But at the end of the day, I thought there were many other candidates, in terms of interviewing for this position. Tyronn Lue, there's Jason Kidd. There was even maybe they could wait for the season to get over, so they could have somebody like a Billy Donovan. They had Brett Brown, so
Mark Jackson, yeah.
Mark Jackson. So a wide variety of choices, and these people have at least the credentials in terms of becoming a head coach in the NBA. Now, the only problem I feel for Steve Nash would be controlling the egos of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Now, Kevin Durant is ultra sensitive, and Kyrie Irving has a big ego problem. And, so it's all about controlling these two, because I feel that you get to become a championship team when you sign these two gentlemen, right?
Yeah.
So automatically you're going to be one of the top contenders from the East. So does it really make sense to go with a coach who has probably never coached before? Or do you go with a coach who has a little bit of experience? So that's my only concern with this hiring. I don't have any problem with the credentials of Steve Nash as a player, but I have deep doubts of his credentials as a coach. So that's my main issue. But 88% of the audience think that he deserved this job. In my opinion, I'm in the 12% who says no.
And Mr. Kumar, just really quickly, I wanted to address your point of addressing the egos of Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. I think Steve Nash is well equipped to, because first of all, Kevin Durant saw him play. He's a well-respected player, like you said, has won multiple MVPs, had a Hall of Fame career, almost made the finals that 1 year with the Suns, but got defeated by the Spurs. So I think Steve Nash can be straight with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant and tell them that, hey, you need to be better. And I think they respect, Steve Nash to be able to give his opinion. So I think he'll be able to manage them, because he had also a lot of egos to manage in Phoenix, with Amari Stoudemire and many other players. So I think he's kind of used to it, and I think he'll be fine in managing those egos. But you talk about lack of coaching experience. I think it's really important that he has a good staff with him. He has Jacques Vaughn, who ended up, doing pretty well with the Nets job, last year. And I think they need to really help Steve Nash make the necessary adjustments, especially in the playoff, and kind of help him along the way. Because as you said, he really has no coaching experience, and he'll be figuring it out. along the way. And for me, if I had to choose, I would have personally chosen Mark Jackson for this job. Because first of all, Mark Jackson baked the cake for the Warriors dynasty. He did a great job of developing Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, and Draymond Green. He really allowed them to have a defensive mindset. Like Steve Kerr said, the Warriors would not be the defensive team now without Mark Jackson. Before he took over, they were 26th in defense. And in the 3 years that he was the head coach for the Warriors, they ended up going all the way to 5th. And Mark Jackson can manage, manage the ego, would have managed the egos of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, just as he did with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. And I would have personally chosen Mark Jackson as the head coach, but I have no problems with the Steve Nash hire.
Well, I mean, the audience thinks that, more than, almost 200 people said that it should be some other coach, if not for Steve Nash, of course. And surprisingly, a lot more people voted for Jason Kidd. Of course, Jason Kidd is the assistant with the Lakers team, and Tyronn Lue is the assistant with the Clippers team. I think both these coaches are going to end up getting a head coach position probably in the next season. In my opinion, I think Tyronn Lue would probably be the first one to get it. I think he has a great chance of going to Philadelphia. There are rumors about it, so let's see. I mean, but I think the ultimate question is whether Steve Nash can bring a championship to the Brooklyn Nets with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. We discussed, his credentials a lot. He's been a great player. He's been absolutely phenomenal with, the Phoenix Suns, of course, towards the end of his career, played for the Lakers. And, the Brooklyn Nets has a great team. Of course, with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, at least on books, you would feel like, they're going to be championship contenders pretty much, next season. But, of course, both are coming off, injuries. Let me tell you, the Achilles heel injury is not something that players can easily come back from. And Kyrie Irving has been prone to injuries in the last 2 seasons. Brad Stevens did not really like Kyrie Irving in the Boston Celtics. So, it's all about controlling egos. It's all about controlling egos. These two gentlemen can play the best basketball. So Steve Nash has to be that, man manager. But yeah, 77% of the audience feels like he can bring a championship to Brooklyn.
And I think he will bring a championship to Brooklyn, next year and maybe even the year after. Because they, first of all, they do have Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's been doing really well in his rehab. A couple of weeks ago, he posted a video on Manhattan Beach in California, working out, doing those intense sand workouts. So I think Kevin Durant's going to be ready. Kyrie Irving's going to be ready to lead the Brooklyn Nets. They also have Karis LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie. So they have a solid team around those two superstars to be able to lead the Nets to a title. And right now, Mr. Kumar, I would say no matter who wins the championship, and who comes out of the East, I would say the Nets are the favorite, not only in the East, but also to win the title next year. And I think, it's all about if Steve Nash can have success in his first year, as a head coach. But I think Steve Nash is definitely going to lead the Nets to multiple titles as a head coach.
Yeah, they do have the arsenal. They have Chris LeVert, who has been phenomenal in the bubble. Spencer Dinwiddie. Of course, they need to probably get like a center who can probably help them. I think it all boils down to what happens in the offseason for the Toronto Raptors and the Miami Heat. I think Patel Kumar says the Nets had a great season. I think they had a decent season. I think, it all boils down to the performances of Kyrie and Kevin Durant, both, champions in their own right, with the combination of Steve Nash. So, yeah, as you said, 77% people thought, Brooklyn Nets is going to win the championship.
I think the Brooklyn Nets are, geared for a championship run and they have to. The expectations are high. They would not have signed Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving without the expectations to win a championship. But I think, Kyrie Irving does get a little bit of a bad rap. I think he was unhappy in Boston, but now he's happy to be in Brooklyn, paired with his best friend, Kevin Durant. And I think those two are going to be a lethal combination. And already two have great chemistry together, with USA basketball. So I think and they work out together also in the offseason. So I think these two are going to be ready, to add to their legacy and win championships for the Brooklyn Nets.
So the East is going to get exciting. It's not going to be the Eastern Conference anymore.
Oh man, we got some good teams: the Nets, the Raptors, the Celtics, maybe the Sixers. So the East, maybe even a little bit more deep in the West next year, Mr. Kumar. It's definitely not going to be called the Eastern Conference. It's going to be definitely the stronger conference in the NBA.
It's not going to be the stronger conference. Come on. But anyway, that's a different discussion altogether. But anyway, let's move on because we have to move on to the spiciest section on YouTube, the Patel and Kumar NBA Talk Show Indian TADKA section. Welcome back, everyone, to the spiciest section on YouTube.
It's getting hot in here. Oh, man.
Get some water. Get some beer. But anyway, I think, we had a fantastic interview with Charu Sharma in the last episode. Of course, he was giving his viewpoints on, how he, started a professional league in Kabaddi, the Pro Kabaddi League, and of course his insights into how he started it and what are the ingredients for a successful pro league in India, apart from cricket, of course. So the professional basketball league in India, I mean, do you really think that, a league in India can be successful, or do we really think that we can have a league in India, first of all?
I think we can have a league in India, and the basketball fans in India definitely deserve a league, because they've been starving, for a basketball league, because basketball has continued to, grow in India, and a league will be able to garner attention, especially among the youth, through social media coverage, and get young people, more involved in watching basketball and wanting to play basketball, at a local level. And the league will also go a long way in helping, develop the top tier talent, in India, because it will give them a platform to be able to showcase their skills, around the world and get maybe opportunities, in around the world, or maybe even, in the NBA and college. So I think a league will do a lot of good, for the Indian basketball players and the fans. And we're due time, Mr. Kumar. A league really needs to happen, and I think the fans definitely deserve to have an Indian pro basketball league. And so, yeah, and also, there's also been other, pro leagues in India, like Mr. Kumar said, a Kabaddi league, hockey league, a football league, and even a volleyball league. So why not there, have a basketball league? Basketball is one of the fastest growing sports, in India. And a league will also be able to develop the local grassroots talent there in India, because there's no feeder system like like the NCAA here in the U.S. So it's a league will allow young talent to be able to hone their skills, grow, and want to represent their country in India, and want to play at the highest level, because there's a lot of great players and teams in India. So it will be really high level competition. And must-see basketball.
Well, I mean, we ran a poll with the audience, and more than 50% of the people actually think that there's never going to be a basketball league in India, a pro basketball league in India. And for some reason, I don't know. I think I sit in that 50% of those people who voted never. And I'll tell you the reason why. I agree to all the points that you just said. that, it'll give a platform to showcase, the players' talents. It will help in the development of the sport. But does India really have the spices or the tadka that is required in order to start a professional basketball league? And that's the question, right? Now, there are two approaches that you can have. Either you can have the top-down approach where you start the professional basketball league and go down to the grassroots. Or you could have the grassroots level develop and then go on to the professional league. I think both these cases have been pretty much absent in the case of basketball. So as Patel Kumar said, nobody used to watch kabaddi. It was a rural game. But now because of the league and because of the way it has entertained the audience, people have become a big fan of kabaddi. Now, you need a catalyst like that for basketball as well. We need a basketball league. The basketball fraternity, the basketball fans, everybody wants a pro basketball league, but it's been 10 years since we first started that discussion. I think it is going to take a large effort in terms of the federation. It's going to take a large effort in terms of maybe the NBA. It's going to take a lot of effort from the sponsors, everybody coming together. Because let me tell you, that is one of the most popular sports across the globe because it's a universal sport. Whereas, a sport like baseball or football, which has a higher market value in the United States, it's not a global sport. The basketball has that advantage of being a global sport. But I think India just doesn't have what it takes to start a pro basketball league. Maybe the federation is to blame. Maybe it's some other organization to blame. But, we need to come together. The basketball fraternity has to come together in order to force, the stakeholders in terms of making sure that you have a pro basketball league. But at the same time, you also need the stakeholders to start developing the sport at the grassroots level. Because let me tell you, there's more number of basketball courts in India than a cricket ground. Every school, pretty much in every school, you will have a basketball court. So it's not about having the infrastructure. It's just about getting people who are sitting at home to come and play the sport on the ground.
And I definitely agree with you that, everybody, all parties need to work together, for the good of, basketball in India. And there's definitely demand, for a basketball league. There's a lot of, passionate basketball fans and hoop cultures in, cities like Chennai, Bangalore, Delhi, Mumbai. And also a basketball league will allow the media to cover more basketball events and to highlight basketball stories that the fans can be able to better connect with the players and follow these Indian basketball players on a local level rather than on an international level. So I think, having something local will be able to have the fans connect, with their players and have fans to be proudly watch Indian basketball players playing at the highest level. And I think it needs to happen, sooner rather than later. And I hope that a basketball league does happen pretty soon.
Yeah, it'll just give a platform for a lot of these young prospects who are now getting scholarships in U.S. colleges in D1, D2. These are the kind of players that you need, back in the professional league in India. And, you have Princepal Singh, who's been selected by the G League, and he has aspirations to play in the NBA. You have other players who've been chosen by the NBA Academy in India, playing there as well. So if these players are showcased as the talent, maybe we have a chance of popularizing the sport through them and maybe having them in the professional leagues and giving them a chance to become professional players. Because this could be a stepping stone for them. The Indian Basketball League is going to be at a nascent stage at the beginning. So you'll have all these players playing in, probably they get an opportunity to play in some other, more popular leagues because of their performance in the leagues in India.
Definitely, and it'll be because there's a lot of talent, in India. It's just about showcasing that talent, and Praktar, saying basketball is very popular among the youth right now. To make it popular, the NBA should organize more exhibition games, and they did have the NBA India games, a couple years ago, or excuse me, last year, and was very popular, and they had a lot of fans, in the arena. But this year, sadly, they could not do it because of the COVID situation. And I think the NBA is looking to continue to further tap into that India market because they definitely know that there's fans there that love basketball and want to watch basketball. And I look for the NBA to continue to have more exhibition games and to continue to develop basketball in India.
Well, I mean, does it really help in terms of development? I don't know. Because the NBA games is more entertainment. I mean, they want people to come into the stadium to watch the games. Yeah, I mean, I know indirectly it might help in terms of, inspiring some youngsters to take up that sport. But at the end of the day, you want Indian people playing the sport. You have to organize, competitions for the Indian team with foreign teams in India and, popularize it. Because you want Indian stars, to become more popular, right? Yeah, I mean, the NBA is doing its best, but at the same time, if it's the games are at like 4 in the morning, 6 in the morning, nobody's going to watch it. I mean, the amount of audience is very limited. Only hardcore basketball fans are going to watch those games waking up at 4 a.m. So you need prime time sport. You need prime time basketball in order to become more popular. But anyway, I mean, we'll see more.
And also, speaking of, primetime sports, if you have a basketball league in India local, then that's definitely primetime that fans will want to tune in and see the, different talent in India. And we got a meme here that's saying, Nancy Pelosi, when you realize that this year's NBA Finals will have fewer in-stadium spectators than the senior nationals. That's pretty funny, Mr. Kumar.
I know it's funny because of the bubble situation, of course, but I don't think you ever had more than a few thousand people watching the senior nationals. I think, I don't know, the most popular places have been probably Punjab, Ludhiana, having a few thousand people, and then maybe Gujarat last year when they had the senior nationals in a new indoor arena there, and there were quite a few people there as well. So yeah, but it's funny that somebody's pointed out that there's going to be fewer audience. But this other meme is about when you're flipping channels and you find that DD Sports, that's the local channel here, which randomly shows some kind of a sport, and especially basketball, and you'll have like a senior national game or some tournament which happened, and they recorded it being shown on Doordarshan. So, and it's exciting. You just keep flipping channels, and suddenly you're like, whoa, Indian basketball on, TV. I mean, that's like I think Haley's Comet is more. You'll see that more frequently than basketball being shown on Doordarshan.
That's certainly true. And they would show random parts of the different basketball games, and it would be like the third quarter, it would be just random, a lot of turnovers, it would be very sloppy, and it would be they would show the worst part of the game. And when you're trying to promote basketball, you want to put basketball in a positive light. So I think it was definitely funny, Mr. Kumar, these memes, and we just wanted to bring these memes to a little bit, lighten up the mood a little bit. From the Indian Basketball League conversation and bring a little fun part to end the show.
Yeah, but before we end the show, I would just like to wish Shivam Patel, my co-host, a very happy birthday. His birthday was on last Monday, of course, and he had a great time with his family going to a resort, and there you see having his nice meal with all the fireworks. And I thought you would be surrounded by ladies out there, Mr. Patel.
Oh, Mr. Kumar, this was completely with my family. We had a great weekend. It was great to spend time with them. Get away a little bit. Went swimming and get in the water, cool off. It's been really hot here in Texas. So it was a great weekend, great getaway, time with the family. And I appreciate, you wishing me a happy birthday. So
Yeah, look at that cake, man. Look at that cake. I mean, looks
oh
like
man.
you put on a few pounds there.
Oh, Mr. Kumar, I ate so much this weekend. A lot of tiramisu, a lot of cake, a lot of Italian food. I ate, drank, and was be merry. But I definitely did. I need to shed a couple of pounds. Work out a little bit more. But I'll do that this week. But it was a good time, and I appreciate Soham and Pratar saying wishing me a happy birthday, and I appreciate all the love.
Well, thank you, audience, and of course, hope you enjoyed the show tonight. We hope we will come back again, of course, next Thursday. But we had fun with this show, and of course, round 2 of the playoff continues this week as well. But please connect with us on our Instagram and Twitter handles at Patel and Kumar. And of course, subscribe to our channel on the Ekalavya's YouTube channel. Keep coming back with us and connect with us with all your live comments. We enjoy that. It makes it more interacting. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Mr. Patel. And once again, hope you had a fantastic birthday.
Thank you very much again, Mr. Kumar, and for everybody, for watching. If you want the best basketball coverage now that the playoffs is really heating up, no other place you want to be besides the Patel and Kumar show every Thursday, 7 p.m. India time. Don't miss it. And next time we're going to be talking to you, we'll be in the conference finals, and it will be most likely the Clippers and the Lakers, man. Can't wait for that. But everybody continue to stay safe, and we'll see y'all next week. Peace out.
Sayonara.
Go Raptors!
LeBron!
We the North! We the North!